Hi, and welcome to this new episode of the Lightleaders. Today, we have a very special episode because I have two guests. One is Loren Lockman, and the other one is Professor Spira. And I've had each of them in a podcast where I interview them separately. So if you really want to understand well where people are coming from, I'm actually encouraging people to listen to those individual podcasts, and I'll put the links under the video on YouTube. Today, we are going to cover a few topics. First, we'll start with a little introduction, very short because there's already those podcasts, but about like what they stand for. And then we'll go on to the first topic, which is, can we detox too fast? Can we detox too fast? Then we'll go on to a second topic, which is more around enema and other detox protocols. And the third topic, the different ways to fast. So I'll put chapters under the video. So as a listener, you can go to the parts that interest you the most. And I will start with saying that I'm very grateful that Loren and Spira, you came here to have a gentle conversation around things in nutrition where you might have different views. But I want to start with overall saying that you're pretty aligned on a few things, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but you're advocating a plant-based diet. You think in time it's good to go towards a lot of fruits and a lot of natural hygiene also. So there's a lot of things where you're very aligned, and we can get into more details on the things where there might be small differences. So to get started, I was thinking to have each of you do a quick, I can time it, 4-minute, let's say, 3 to 4 minute introduction. And again, if people want to have more background, there are the podcasts, and then we can go into these questions. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool. So Loren, do you want to start?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Yeah, I'm Loren Lockman. It's great to be here with you. Thanks, Alex, for the opportunity. Spira, great to meet you and be able to share some ideas. I started my journey studying nutrition at 14, which was in 1975, and have spent most of my adult life focused on how we can maximize not just our health and vitality, but really how to maximize our potential, how to become the best version of ourselves possible. And it became obvious and very clear to me that we could only do that if we maximize our health. And so obviously looking at the specific ways to do that became very important. I became a health coach about 30 years ago. And let's see, in March, Tanglewood, the world's largest dedicated water-only fasting center, will celebrate its 27th year in operation. And so I've coached more than 15,000 clients. We've had more than 10,000 clients. 10 of those 15 were people that fasted with me here for an average of 26 days on only water. We've seen amazing things happen with these people, things that defy what medicine says is possible. And what has become increasingly clear to me is that our amazing bodies are meant to function at an incredibly high level of health and vitality, and that if we're willing to make choices that support that, that's almost always what's going to happen. Almost always. There are, of course, situations where someone's waited too long, it's too late, there's too much damage, but amazing things happen almost always. And so, my mission over these years has been guiding people through the fast and getting the word out there, because I want people to know that we don't need to rely on medicine, which is almost complete nonsense, about suppressing symptoms. I mean, of course, there are, I'm alive on probably 4 occasions because of trauma medicine, right? Getting arteries sewn back together, that was 3 times. That's kind of a useful thing. But for dealing with anything else, garden variety illnesses, no, not so useful. Our bodies are meant to heal themselves. And so for me, it all comes down to what can we do to maximize the body's ability to cleanse and heal? Because by doing that, we're going to reach the highest levels of health and vitality possible.
Thank you, Loren. That was just 2 minutes 30. So that was like a
I'm not
quick
sure
one.
what else you want to hear.
Yeah, I guess people will learn more through the conversation. Do you want to go?
I suppose I'll take a little more time. I can say that Tanglewood is located in Costa Rica. We're on 15 hectares. We've got thousands of fruit trees here, more than 200 varieties. What we serve our clients when it's time to eat is all organic, to the extent we can get it. Sometimes we don't have access, but it's practically all organic. I also run the Academy for Vibrant Living, which includes 2 courses, Vibrant Health and a health coach course, where you get a certification by an independent organization as a health coach once you're finished. I work with people both here and remotely. So at any one, right now I've got 4 calls every day with groups of clients all over the world who are fasting with me that for whatever reason can't get here. And what else? You alluded to moving towards a fruit-based diet. I've actually been eating a fruit-based diet now for more than 31 years. And for me, there's no question that that's what our bodies are meant to be consuming, fruit and soft, tender leaves. And so it's amazing being in a place, and Alex, you understand because you're in the tropics as well, where we literally can pick fruit every single day.
Thank you, Loren. Yeah, it's amazing to be here. And I guess Costa Rica is a bit the same.
Very similar.
Yeah. Spira, do you want to go ahead and do your little introduction for yourself?
Sure. So Professor Spira. I've been practicing the mucusless diet healing system by Professor Arnold Ehret for over 20 years. Used to be 300 pounds, suffering, here's my little before and after, 300 pounds, suffering all kinds of different ailments. I used to have chronic migraine headaches, and they put medicine in the nurse's office, and almost every day I would leave class, go take the medicine, lay down for 15 minutes and go back to class. Had chronic constipation, had really bad hemorrhoids all the time. Just I could go on and on with bronchitis. I had yearly bouts of bronchitis, all kinds of ear infections, and like the list goes on. I was very sick, even though I was varsity athlete, was varsity football player and Boy Scout and doing all these different activities. But I would show up to these activities with a box of tissues, blowing my nose all day and coughing up phlegm, and just, I thought that was going to be my reality, that's just my lot in life, because I had a very sick mother who died when I was 12. She had both her legs amputated. I saw her feet turn black and gangrenous right in front of my face. And she passed away. So my grandma, who I really had the mother-son connection with, she passed away when I was 10. And I didn't know how to process that. I didn't know how to understand that. So as I got a little older, I had tried a couple diets here and there, but nothing helped me. At that time, of course, I was focused on wanting to lose weight and wasn't really thinking about being healthy. But anything I tried didn't work. I took some of those pills and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I met my friend, Brother Air, aka Willie Smart, who told me about the mucusless diet healing system, that when I read that book, there was a light that went off that was like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And 6 months later, I had started practicing it. I lost 100 pounds, got off the CPAP unit for sleep apnea. They had me on an oxygen mask when I'm sleeping at night. I was the age of 18. And all the pharmaceutical medications I was taking for allergies, got off of all of that, and just really got my first glimpse at physiological freedom. We talk about the physiological liberation. So then it was pretty soon in, everybody was asking me a bunch of questions about, well, what'd you do? How'd you lose this weight? You look like a totally different person and that kind of thing. And I learned that I had a gift for articulating the principles of the diet, the process, and just what I went through, what I observed other people and talking to. So eventually I started working with people, because people were kind of, the man was like, no, I'm just, I can give you some pointers, but they're like, no, I want to work with you. And so I started working with people. And then eventually got started Mucus Free Life LLC, and we published 7, really technically 8 books, but 7. Our best selling is the annotated mucusless diet healing system, which it has the original text in there from Arnold Ehret, but like all great books of history, there should be an annotated version. And I thought if any book needed an annotated version, this would be the great candidate. So in the margins, I have notes that just further explain certain things that people had commonly misunderstood over the years. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Spira. Thank you so much. Beautiful introduction from the two of you, and we can see a lot of similarities already. I would say one thing, if we get into, well, first on similarities, I guess you're both fans of Arnold Ehret, right? Because I know Loren Lockman also, he's been a big influence for you, especially the book Rational Fasting.
Well, I came across Rational Fasting first. It was the first fasting book I read. It was the first book that opened my eyes to fasting. And the very next book I read was Mucusless Diet Healing System. That was 35 years ago. So yeah, I'm very familiar with the work. I haven't reread those books in a long time. I subsequently found, I was actually giving a lecture and someone said, "Are you familiar with the American Natural Hygiene Society?" I said, "No, I've never heard of it. What's that?" And she said, "You should check them out because they teach a lot of the same things that you've been talking about tonight." And so I looked them up and wound up joining the organization, going to their conference, was later asked to join their board. That didn't happen, but invited me. And I was associated with that organization for about 5 years. They were watering their principles down to attract more people, and I decided I didn't want to keep supporting that. But yeah, I definitely have a huge debt of gratitude to Arnold Ehret for the work he did. He was a pioneer, and I understand. I have not seen your annotated version, but if you found a way to make his work more accessible to people, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, thanks. How is it with the sound of the rain? Is it okay? It's
Yeah,
I don't really hear it at all.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's why I tried to move. So getting into
another he had mentioned, fruits and soft leafy greens, fruits and green leafy vegetables. That I'm on board there. That's what we strive for, and eventually fruit. But I'm not. There's a lot of time I come across people that they want to get into that. Like as soon as they read that humans are meant to be fruit eaters, they want to do it like immediately without any without any transition or cleansing. And then they oftentimes don't have success because they didn't really deal with any kind of transitional principle. But however you get there, I'm definitely, I'm on board for that.
So that's exactly the first topic, actually, which is the rate of detoxification, where I feel, Loren, when I asked you, you were more thinking, well, you might, of course, have a bit of time to adjust, but essentially do it as soon as possible, rather than, I feel the Ehret system is actually, no, you don't want to go too fast, and that's often why people fail. So Loren, if you chat.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the pieces that didn't resonate for me. I understand that there is, of course, a risk of failure with anything, and perhaps that sometimes occurs because one is going fast and detoxing heavily and not feeling very good. But personally, I'm the type of personality, when something makes sense to me, that's it. I don't need to transition. Everything I've done. Okay, today I'm doing this. I understand this makes more sense. I shifted overnight. As I said, I've worked with many thousands of clients now over 30 years, and many of those people did exactly as I did, which was made the shift almost instantly. I don't know of a single person who failed because of that. I mean, I think there are many people who struggled along the way, and that's a common thing. But I'm not so sure that's because of the rate at which they changed. I think what happens to many people is they're simply not very good at dealing with the social aspects. What do you tell people? What do you say to people? What do you do when people are attacking you for your choices? And I guess I remember once someone said to me, raw vegans are strange people. And I thought about that for about 5 seconds. And I said, you're absolutely right. We are, because strange just means not normal, not typical. And in order to do something that most people don't understand, you have to not really care about what they think. I think for me, that's one of the most important attributes of a successful raw vegan, is that they just don't really care if other people understand or don't understand. But yeah, I mean, I think there for some, I think what I said to you, Alex, when we talked about this, is that what the best way to do this, you say it this way, the best way to do this is whatever works for you. So, again, we can liken it to quitting smoking. A lot of people just quit. That's it. They're done. They never go back. They don't keep putting nicotine in their body that way. Other people, for their personality type, they do better by doing some kind of transition, whether it's a gum or a patch or vaping, whatever it is, or simply reducing the number of cigarettes they're consuming. I think what's best is whatever actually works for the individual. But that's it. As long as it works for you, it's okay. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, my own experience and that of many clients is perfectly fine to simply switch right away for anyone willing to do that. And obviously, inevitably put up with more detox. That's going to happen. But I've helped many people through that, with some coaching and helping them understand what's going on. And most of them have hung in there and have been perfectly fine. So I think it's perfectly okay to simply change rather than transition.
I guess my question would be to changing it exactly to what? Like, what would that, when you changed, what did that diet look like, or has it been the same for all those years, or was there any kind of, my question always is, I come back to the mucus forming foods. And so was there any mucus formers in there, any avocados, any nuts, any seeds, anything starchy or fatty that would be in there?
That's not on, I think, on Alex's list of topics, but it's another thing that I don't agree with Ehret on completely. My diet still contains what Ehret would call mucus forming foods. I mean, the truth is no food forms mucus. The body creates mucus on purpose for a good reason. And when we consume certain things, it's going to create that mucus to encapsulate something that doesn't belong in the body, so the body can more readily eliminate it. I eat avocados whenever I eat a salad, which happens on average about 3 times a week. And in a month, my girlfriend will be here. It'll be every night because she'll make salads for both of us every night. And I'm happy to eat them. I can eat avocados every single day and be perfectly fine. They don't create mucus in my body. So the food doesn't create mucus. Now, many things, dairy products, most people are going to create mucus because most people can't digest dairy very well. So, I think we can certainly agree that there are many things that would be called mucus forming foods that should be eliminated. But things like avocados are fruit, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Obviously, it can be overeaten. Anything that can be, that's 70% fat or more, depending on the variety, you can definitely overeat those, and I don't advocate doing that. But what I did was I went all raw overnight. My diet included some nuts and seeds and avocados. And what happened for me was it took about a year before I realized that my body didn't really want nuts and seeds anymore. Now, I still eat them, but very infrequently now. When I'm in Ubud, I will probably, last time I was there, I had half a dozen restaurant meals. It's so easy to fall into that because they're so amazing there. And I wound up meeting friends at restaurants. I think I went to 3 different restaurants that had raw food. And those meals are typically heavier than is optimal for my body. I don't feel as good afterwards, but it's something I recover from, quickly. So it's not something I'd recommend doing consistently, but for me, every once in a while, it's not really a problem. But other than that, I mean, it's
Mm.
so there was a little bit of change of dropping some of the heavier, fattier foods. Avocados never got dropped. Other than that, it's been pretty much the same thing the entire time.
Mm. Yeah. So from our perspective, in terms of when we say mucus forming foods, we're not necessarily talking about the lymphatic response that in the body producing the mucus as a response to the food, but the food, like the uneliminated, it's like, there's a lot that's broken down, and the digestive fluid breaks a lot of stuff down. But after a certain amount of constipation over time, there is uneliminated unnatural food substances that sit on the lining of the colon and lining in the intestines, and over time get putrid and nasty. And this is, I always like to show people my mucoid plaque pictures here. So this is a mixture of, mucus that the body created. Some of them might be parasites, but a lot of that is uneliminated mucus and pus forming foods, because apples don't do that. Pineapple doesn't do that, but hamburgers do that. Now, in my experience, I have had that when I eat an avocado, it's that I notice that slime immediately. If I go from 100% fruit, like mucus free fruit, and when I go to the bathroom, I literally don't have to wipe. As soon as I eat an avocado, there is a residue. Boy, I gotta wipe again, And so that's, now I don't tell people to not eat it. For me, it's part of a transitional concept. It's part of a transition. It's like the same thing with the nuts and the seeds, or starchy food, or cooked mucus-free foods for that matter. It's part of a larger transition. If your goal is to be 100% mucus-free, which is my goal, where I'm coming from, where the focus was more on mucus-free versus 100% raw, just in terms of like a paradigm. It's like kind of privilege the mucus-free over and above, kind of like a strict adherence to a raw type of program.
And I think that's, can you hear me? Yeah, I think that's also kind of one of the differences there is in the fine tuning of what you eat. I'm actually inspired by both. The one is more the fruitarian raw way, and one is more the mucus-free way, and they have a big overlap, but they have little differences, as we can see here. And I'm getting a little bit conscious right now of not getting too much into the nitty-gritty details of which food, and go back more into the rate of detox, if you're both aligned with that.
Sure.
And actually, I think it was a really, but I think that was really good, and that's almost like a first part of like mucus-free versus raw and fruitarian.
I would, if it's okay, I'd like to say just one more thing in response to what Spira just said. I think, obviously, again, for any individual, avoiding things that create, have your body creating mucus, that's a problem. It would make sense to avoid those things. Absolutely. What I find is that when the body's clean, there's no problem eating avocados and even small amounts of nuts and seeds. No grease, no slime, no wiping. I mean, I do, but sometimes I think, I must have missed because there's nothing on the paper, right? That's what happens almost every time I eliminate. And, for me, what's clear, and it's interesting because I've run kind of a laboratory of sorts with more than 10,000 fasting clients, many of whom wind up at some point going and eating some cooked food. What I hear invariably, and I poll every group, we'll have normally 30 to 34 people here at a time. And I'll ask them, how many of you have spent 4 weeks or more eating only raw? There's usually about a third to a half the hands will go up. And then I'll ask them how many of them ate some cooked food after that and immediately felt bad, regardless of what it was. It could be brown rice and steamed vegetables. It could be steamed vegetables, no rice. It doesn't matter.
What about, because the one thing that unless they are in the mucusless diet, I've never heard anybody talk about, did you have anybody that just ate baked apples or baked banana?
No.
as the cooked item, you know. Huh?
I said, no, why would anyone eat that way? No.
Well, but that's one of that's one of those things. That's one of those things where we'd be different. Where there's many instances I'd rather see somebody eat a cooked mucus-free item than a mucus-forming raw item.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think again, I think there are probably many raw vegan dishes that are worse than some cooked foods. And I think that's what we're agreeing on with that.
Yeah.
No
question.
I think so. Actually, I'm a good case because I'm a little bit in between. And sometimes I'm in a mood and I'd go to a vegan restaurant and I'd be like, do I want that raw, really complex meal with 30, 40 ingredients? Or do I want that lightly cooked vegetables? That's a little bit of a dilemma. And look, again, I don't want to go like so into the details of this.
Of course.
I guess,
but listen,
like
but I mean,
spectrum.
But that is a false dilemma. I'm willing to bet. You're pretty young, Alex, but I'm guessing even in your young life so far, no one's come up to you with a gun and said, choose one of those two things. You don't have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever feels good. Like for me, raw that raw gourmet, that doesn't make me feel good. Like I just avoid that when I can, because it does not eliminate.
It's definitely suboptimal, no question about it.
And actually, if you go to the real raw, like if you push raw, if you go to a raw restaurant, it just means uncooked, which is one of the definitions of raw. But right. I think in Loren's point, the raw is like the great raw is raw from nature. So if you dehydrate a papaya, it's not raw. If you do a flaxseed cracker, it's not raw, because it's not something you'd find in nature, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and we're not going to improve on what nature's given us, and ultimately, and again, listen, Spira, if that's where you're headed, and it takes you 5 or 10 years to get there, or however long, that's okay. But I mean, you could do it overnight if you want to.
Okay, guys. So the rate of detoxification, really interesting, actually. Loren, you compare it with cigarettes, for example. Right. But in Arnold Ehret's approach, there is a danger to going too fast. And even in reading Man's Higher Consciousness, there are some studies around the body adapting. And if you change the environment too fast, it can be dangerous, right? So I guess that's also where you're coming from, Professor Spira.
Yeah, because again, when you're talking about mucus free, it's a different goal. It's a different paradigm where I know I could be 100% raw, and if I incorporated some of the mucus forming raw foods, I'd be easy. But and we recently had like a 7-day mucus free challenge, and what people realize when you really go 100% mucus free, that is not as easy as people thought it was. And so when you're striving for 100% mucus free, to get to, and then you start I'm on a stint. I've been absolutely no fat, no starch of any kind, 100% mucus free for the past 80 days. So it's been 80 days since I ate anything remotely or put anything. A lot of that time was juice fasting. I know we'll get to talking about that later, but but that's it's not as easy as people think it is, to be 100% mucus free. So it's different.
To be specific, do you think it can be dangerous for someone to go fruitarian, for example, from one day to another? Like, could they die from or having big problems from detoxing too fast?
No, absolutely not. Our bodies are virtually infinitely intelligent. Go ahead.
Can I get? I know for you, Loren, but I'm interested.
I definitely. I mean, and that's something. Well, in the Mucusless Diet book, Arnold Ehret has case studies of that, of people that had, that didn't do very well at all. They try to go 100% fruit and then they fall off. We got the Steve Jobs example of, here's a guy trying to eat nothing but apples. He couldn't keep doing that up, and he admitted later, like, he ended up going back to eating sushi and stuff in the 80s, but for a while he was a true believer and he wanted to be a fruitarian immediately. Like if he could have ate nothing but apples, there's a reason that his company is called Apple, because he named it after he did a 2-week-long apple fast on an apple farm. You know, can't do it, you know, and for like, he wasn't able to do it. And I've come across a lot of those people, and I work with a lot of former raw foodists that kind of went through a lot of all the books and all the trainings and things, and they might have been raw for 2-3 years and doing a lot of fasting, or they were trying to be fruitarian, and it was like they felt good for a while, then they started not feeling good, and they kind of hit this ceiling, and then they're like, all right, what, you know what, so instead of, because a lot of those people go all the way back to the way they used to eat, but then they saw what we were talking about, where they were like, well, maybe let's try this transition thing and see if I can do that, because they weren't able to do the other thing.
Loren?
Yeah, well, I mean, so certainly a lot of people, I mean, what Spira just described is people feel good for a while, then they don't. Well, yeah, I mean, anyone who's fasted with me for 21 days or longer, that's not going to happen, because they get so much of the garbage out of their bodies. You know, Jeff is an example. Tell you, after his fast, he felt better than ever. Didn't really think it was possible to do better than that, but he did, and felt even better than that the second time. But it was easy for him to stick on the diet, because once you get enough of the garbage out of your body, there's no craving for that stuff. What happens to most people is they go, let's say they go to a perfect diet, you know, high water content fruits, no, and I think when you said no fat, Spira, you meant no concentrated fat, because every living cell contains fat, so you can't avoid it. But no concentrated fats, no avocados, no nuts and seeds like that. Yeah, I mean, someone doing that, what's going to happen is they're going to feel amazing. And at some point, their body's going to finally be able to begin detoxifying while they're awake for the first time in their life. Because for most people, that happens while they're sleeping, right? So they wake up with a, you know, coated tongue and stinky armpits, and that's because their body's detoxifying. It starts happening while they're awake, and it doesn't feel very good. We can avoid that by fasting, but you know, when that happens, there's A, they're going to feel bad, and B, there may be some cravings coming up as the body begins to rehydrate some of the nasty old materials stuck in their body their entire life. It's perfectly okay if someone chooses to, you know, to eat some baked apples or whatever else, you know, that mucusless foods. That's okay. They'd be far better off, in my opinion, sticking with the raw diet as closely as they're able to, and you know, maybe understanding. I think this is perhaps the greatest value, is understanding which cooked foods are actually least harmful. So if you just can't handle, you know, if you're not willing or able to stay all raw, you know which things you can fall back on without creating too much of a problem. But I don't think there's any good reason for anyone to keep eating cooked food when all raw is always going to be a lot better, assuming it's clean and as we find in nature.
Also, for you, Spira, a quick question on the Steve Jobs example. For example, like, did he go back to sushi? Do you feel it is because he went to fruits too fast for his body and it was kind of bad for him, or is it because he couldn't handle the detox, but it was actually great for him?
No, he didn't. Because the transition is not just physical; it's body, mind, and spirit. And the majority of people that I've met, there was a lot of people whose minds were, they thought they were ready, and so they're kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna go. But then as their body actually started to go through the transformation, all those emotions started to come. Their attachments to the way they used to eat, all that stuff kind of came, and it was like, and it got real for them. Like, oh, I'm really making permanent changes to my body, and it will make it so that I can't go back. And then, you know, there's the mental aspect, the physical aspect of if you didn't eliminate enough or allow your body to go through the physiological changes and the transformation, or if you didn't properly, as Loren said, detox or get rid of that stuff out of there, then you're going to have you're going to have some serious problems. So if you're talking about all fruit immediately, we might agree that if that's your goal, then you're probably going to need to do some fasting first. Because I don't know about, like, if you eat a regular diet, then you're like, okay, I'm gonna just eat oranges for 2 months, but you didn't get that 32 feet of impacted intestines and all that stuff out of your gut first, and you want to try to do that, and then you wonder why, you wake up one day and you got just straight poison going through your blood. You can't hardly function or breathe, and then it's like, yeah, you probably going a little too fast.
Okay, so I'd like to wrap up then that section. And I feel like and you can tell me if I'm wrong on that, but I feel like the kind of agreement we have there is that in theory, you can't really detox too fast, because it's just that if you do it faster, it's going to be super hard and you're going to be more likely to quit. So in theory, you could do, and some people who are quite sick and have no other choice, they have that motivation, they actually go quite fast. But then in practice, it's often better to have a transition if you feel the person are going to quit because it's too hard for their lifestyle or with the detox symptoms. Is that kind of something we are pretty aligned on, Loren?
Well, I mean, what I would say is that it's, again, I think a lot of it really comes down to personality. For me and many of the people I've worked with, maybe the people that resonate with me, that come to me, that wind up working with me, are people who, not always, but many of these people are people who, like me, say, look, this makes the most sense to me, and so I'm going to do it. And if they understand that, I mean, I don't think it's dangerous in any way. I've never seen anyone who couldn't move or couldn't breathe because they were detoxing too quickly. Your body's pretty intelligent. It can be quite uncomfortable as the body begins to detoxify. But I think when people understand what's going on, that's not so much of a problem for people. Clearly, as early in the process as possible. And it's not just, it's not just if one wants to eat a fruit-based diet. Again, I'd come back to, if one wants to maximize their potential, we can't, every time we cook food, there's a immune reaction. The body makes white blood cells and sends them to your digestive tract. Clearly, there's no such thing as healthy cooked food. Clearly, everything is relative and some things are better than others. But ultimately, the healthiest diet for any species is the raw diet that its body was actually intended for. And for us, that's fruits and leafy greens. Anyone can do that right now, and whether it's difficult or challenging, there's no reason for them to go back to cooked food unless that's what they choose to do.
Okay, thanks, Loren. So now I'd like to close more that chapter and open the second one, which we started to talk about a little bit, especially Professor Spira, when you mentioned like what we call, I guess, mucoid plaques, what was on your on the pictures you showed for the people on YouTube, the sexy pictures.
The fun stuff.
He's a collector.
Yeah. So now looking into detox in general, especially mucoid plaques, which you both believe in, because that's definitely a debate. Do mucoid plaques exist?
Sure.
And the best ways to get rid of it. It's almost like there's, if I were to put them in 3 categories, we have the more hardcore detox, which I've tried in some way, and none of you are really into, but which is more, I think so, but you can correct me, which is more either the GI broom, the bentonic clay, the psyllium musk, even things like going towards turpentine and all that. I've tried quite a few of them. There's one in Bali that's actually quite popular called Zen Cleanse, which is a blend of enzymes from fruits with psyllium musk, and has, according to the photos, good results. But then some people say, oh, it's the product. And then you have ways that are that I know you really like, Professor Spira, which is the enema, which is in a way quite natural because you use water and lemon. But in the, I remember when I asked Loren about it, he's not a fan, and Loren is maybe a little bit even more, let's say, extreme or advanced, based on who you talk to, in terms of natural hygiene, where in nature, animals don't get enemas also, and when you trust the body, even the enema is a little bit intrusive. So, Professor Spira, I know you're really into enema to assist detoxification of the body and removing the mucoid plaques. And I feel you're in that middle ground. Do you feel a lot of the detox things like the GI brooms are a little bit too intrusive? And do you feel not doing enema though is like missing an opportunity to get rid of them quicker?
I look at all those things as potential naturopathic tools. Now, there's a few of those that I just X off the list immediately, like, you know, mentioned the turpentine. I'm like, no, not into that. But you know, I understand what the GI broom kind of thing does. I'm more a fan of like Arnold Ehret's Inner Clean formula, where he talked about a herbal formula. But none of these things are meant to be something you would take all the time, or that you would be, you know, where you just are always like, okay, let me go get this clay, because I know people that'll drink the clay every day and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's not for me, but hey, you know, people do whatever they want to do. But you know, in terms of a tool, that's how I look at it. Some of these therapies, they're naturopathic tools if it fits within the context of the system, of the healing system, and it makes sense. And the principle of elimination, it's aiding with elimination and not doing harm, then, you know, if it works for somebody, I'm generally on board. But we only have a couple. There's really only a few things that we're down to in terms of those naturopathic tools. And but at the end of the day, the focus is on eating. You know, the focus is on what you're putting in your body, eating in a way, combining your meals or your food, or preparing it, or whatever you do, so that it aids the body in elimination. Because we don't believe in these modern day nutrition theories that have developed over the past 150 years, the protein theories and the calorie theories and the vitamin theories and all that kind of stuff. From our perspective, the reason that we eat, the whole reason we eat, is to aid the body in its elimination. And as you eat more and more correctly, you end up needing to eat less, where you go days without food, and you didn't intend to do that. It's not a fast. It's just what your body doesn't need food for a while, because you've cleaned your blood to the point you just don't, it's just not a thing. It's like a everyday, to eat every day, you know, that becomes weird later on. Like, it's not that you're fasting, it's not eating every day. So for me, it's just tools, you know, and then so the analysis is what tools make sense. Like, what can we use to get us closer to our goals, whatever those goals are. You know, my goal is to be 100% mucus free, but you know, whatever that is, it's like, let's bring it in, you know.
So actually, that's a good point. And even before we go into things like the enema, what you said about how you view food, I know someone like Doug Graham, for example, talks a lot about making sure you eat enough when you're on Fruitarian, and is more about the calories also. So I'd be interested to hear, Loren, because almost what you share here, Spira, is that I remember we had a really good discussion about the possibility of breviarians. And so what do you think, Loren, when Spira says food is mainly for detox, and that when you don't need to detox as much?
Well, I wouldn't say detox. I would use the word elimination. There's a different connotation, because it's not, I'm not into like this, like you're constantly detoxing. It's like, no, everything in your body from your skin to your everything is eliminating that which is unnecessary, you know. And so that's the frame.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree that the body wants to eliminate everything in the body which is unnecessary. And for most people, you know, if you grew up eating conventionally, as most of us, I guess all of us here probably did, right? I did. Sounds like you did, Spira, Alex, too. So, you know, we all wound up. You by 18, I was 23 when I got so sick. Not that much older. And you know, it's clearly, I think, probably for both of us, it was probably primarily because of the choices we'd made up until then. We didn't know any better. I did what I thought was healthy. I mean, as a kid, I wasn't really paying attention to that. My mother was in charge of that, right? But later on, when I made my own choices, I mean, I wasn't always, even after studying nutrition at 14, there were times in my life throughout high school and college when I was more interested in having fun and wasn't paying that much attention to how healthy things that I was doing were. But ultimately, I came back to that. And I mean, I think we eat for primarily, I would say we're eating because the body actually needs nutrients and energy. And I mean, I agree completely that we can get so much more efficient that we need much less food. And I'm 6 feet tall, I'm 150 pounds. I have a tiny frame, but I have a lot of muscle mass and for my size. And I eat 1,000 calories a day on average most of the time. So far today, I've eaten a watermelon, a small watermelon, that's all. That was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after 5 or 6 hours of calls, giving a lecture, checking with all of my clients here, having one-on-one consultations with each person here, and spending an hour playing Frisbee with a couple guys who are on their way out of here, who are back on their feet, and working out this morning as well. So, we don't need nearly as much food as most people think we do. There's no question about that. And I agree that there's a lot of stuff the body needs to eliminate. I don't think we actually need to eat to eliminate that stuff, though. We eliminate that stuff here for 27 years by fasting, by consuming only water. There's no food necessary to move that stuff out of the body. Now, for a lot of people, because the stuff is so stuck, I mean, my clients too, the mucoid plaque doesn't usually start moving until they're eating again, because it's so stuck. It helps to have something coming in, with water and fiber to help push it out. But once the system is clean, there are people who think that you can't have a bowel movement unless you eat something else, right, to move it through, and that's not true. I could have one meal after 10 days of fasting, and I'll have a bowel movement 8 to 10 hours later. It may not be very big if I didn't eat much, but there's going to be something leaving my body, because that happens in a well-functioning system all by itself.
And going to the enema now, Loren, why aren't you a fan of enemas?
Well, I mean, first of all, there's a couple of things, but I think the most important things to consider are that our second brain, as it's now called sometimes, the gut biome, which is 10 trillion bacteria that live in the colon, 3 pounds, same weight as the brain, they're flushed out with enemas. We alter the pH, and when we weaken the muscle, and there's actually some research that shows that people have poorer bowel function after the fact. Now, I'm not strictly against it, and I probably told you last time you asked me about this, Alex, that here I will actually sometimes encourage someone to take an enema, but it probably doesn't happen. I mean, I work with hundreds of people a year now, 500 people a year. I probably don't encourage people more than 5 times a year, maybe 1% of the time. And it's only when someone they've got something that is so stuck, they're in pain and they can't move it on their own. And so they need something
like
else.
Jeff.
Like Jeff. That's right. I suggested Jeff do an enema. And because, it was so stuck, it just didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And it's crazy how often people do move it without any help, without doing anything. Typically, if we just let the body be, it'll happen on its own. And so, here's the thing. If there was no way to get this stuff out, and sometimes it feels like there's no way, that's when I'll say to someone, maybe you want to go ahead and try an enema. We don't want to become dependent on it, because, we're also flushing out electrolytes, the result of which can actually dehydrate someone. Here we are trying to hydrate people because it's the most important thing. And ultimately, enemas, there are people who use enemas to hydrate themselves, but ultimately it has the opposite effect. If you're upsetting the balance of electrolytes, which is very sensitive, you'll wind up dehydrated and actually putting yourself in more danger. So if there was no other way to do it, as it sometimes seems, then I think it's the right thing to do. But most of the time, it's unnecessary and it's harmful. There's negative consequences of enemas. So my philosophy is, why do anything that we don't need to do if it might be harmful to us when there's a better way to do it that's in no way harmful?
So I mean, yeah, we'll disagree on this one. We'll agree to disagree. But what I've seen, because we've done, and I know people that have done them for a long time, you know, for years, as just a part, like people, like as a part of like natural hygiene. You brush your teeth, you put a little colon irrigation, because of, so, you know, most people still eating mucus forming foods. There's still this extra slime buildup going on. And we have generations and generations of degeneration that of parents passing on their mucus quantities that's been encapsulated into their cells of their body, and passing on that degeneracy, passing on that filth that's been happening, you know, generation after generation. There, when you have babies being born that have diseases immediately, well, that's not a genetic. Oh, everybody likes to blame genetics. What was the parents eating? And I guarantee they were eating pus and mucus forming foods. And if there is whatever you want to call it, that constipation is what caused, and I'm talking cellular constipation, is what caused the issues there. So we look at it as, you know, Arnold Ehret wrote a book called "Thus Speaketh the Stomach," and it's this. He speaks from the perspective of the stomach and of the gut. And when you start to study, like the real genealogy would be or the real benefit of a genealogy would be to look at the history of your stomach and look at, because not everybody's stomach tells the same story. Because some people's, like, look at your ancestry. Where are you coming from? Or Europe, Africa, China, wherever. That's going to give you insight on the kinds of things you're craving, the kinds of eliminations, the rate of elimination that you're going to need to do. And so in terms of enemas, we just find that as, and we do lemon juice and distilled water enemas. And first and foremost, always have a natural bowel movement first before, you know, do it as a principle when we tell people to do it. There are times when I tell people to not do it, depending on certain ailments. Like Loren has certain times when he'll tell people to do it. We have times we tell people don't do it if they're going through a certain kind of thing. And so for us, we just find that as, if somebody wants to call it like, oh, well, that's unnatural. Well, then that would be the unnatural tool to help realign from, you know, tens of thousands of years of pure degeneracy and just packing on the filth. And what I've found is, so I've done enemas, say, you know, I mean, real long. Now, I'm sure we'll talk about juice versus, we don't have to, if we don't want to call that a fast, we can just call that an extended liquid diet of, say, so I could be very small amount of juice or lemon water or something like that. And 60 or 70 days into that, I'm doing an enema, there's still globs of stuff coming out, you know, and that's years. And, you know, but I find that type of detox, that type of deep, you know, getting, you know, Arnold Ehret talks about getting into, you know, the kind of depth that you do when you do this year after year after year, and you get deeper and deeper every time. You're getting deeper and deeper into the tissue system, into the nerves, into the microscopic capillaries that haven't had blood even flow there. And there's stuff that comes out. And so I've been on some of those where you're still having natural bowel movements, still having, and it's slime, or sometimes you can get that clear slime eliminations, you know, where it's just slime that comes out. But I find that the deeper you get, and when you use this kind of therapeutic transition, it's almost like another way that I like to describe it is it's like like the body is literally just squeezing out, and every time, like if you take a sponge that's saturated with mucus or that's saturated with glue, the first time you squeeze it, you're not going to get all that glue out of there. You squeeze it, then you put it under the water. Squeeze it, put it under the water. You know, and how many times you have to squeeze it and put it under that water before you have all of that sticky glue that is out of that sponge. And that this is kind of directly coming out of a, you know, Arnold Ehret principle, where he talks about the tissues as a kind of a spongy material that's saturated with all this dross that's not supposed to be there. That's a result of, you know, the way that we eat and the way that we live.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, our bodies aren't sponges. They're living tissue, and they have incredible innate intelligence. And we don't need to do something unnatural. What we need to do is just get out of the body's way, and that's really what water-only fasting is about: is intelligently getting out of the body's way. You know, we see people here all the time, Spira, who we're often, because water-only fasting is by most people considered quite radical. And I don't know if you know who the Jeff is that Alex is referring to, but Jeff has become a good friend, having fasted with me twice. He's one of those people that was afraid to fast. You know, he understood. I mean, like, he got it intellectually, but he kept doing juices and did all kinds of things like a lot of other people do. Usually they come here, this is the last thing. This is the one thing they haven't tried yet. And we virtually always see success, even when people have already done tons of enemas and colonics. I can tell you story after story of people who've done, you know, dozens of these things and thought that their systems, you know, must be clean. But what comes out of their bodies with fasting long enough and properly, with no need for an enema, is far more than, I mean, there's always stuff left, which tells us, you know, that it's not getting it all. And so, you know, the problem is, again, if it were the only way, you know, if I agreed with you, if I believed that, no, Spira's right, it's like glue, and the only way we're going to get it out is if we keep putting water in there. But my experience with more than 10,000 people is that's not true. Everybody eliminates stuff that they couldn't eliminate doing enemas and colonics. And when we do it this way, we don't lose electrolytes. We don't flush out the beneficial bacteria that we need to have. We don't upset the biome and then have to try to figure out how to get that balanced again. All that stays in a healthy way, actually gets healthier, rather than creating something that we then have to try to fix. So I think that's the difference, is that we're not creating, you know, again, there's other ways to do it that don't create any problems. Why do something that inevitably, invariably is going to be problematic? That's clear.
Well, I would push back on that, just because like, you've dealt with thousands of people doing that. Like, I've seen what enemas do with thousands of people, and folks that have done them for 20, 30, 40 years. I don't believe in that this is a brand new theory, like these microbiome things and electrolytes and stuff. I just don't agree with that. And I haven't experienced that. If anything like that was going to happen, it would have definitely happened to me. It would have happened to all of our colleagues. And I'll say that the one time that we would tell people that to back off the enemas is if it's obvious they have certain endocrine issues, and if they're really, then it's like, okay, now, but then we're looking at the herbs at that point, you know, to try to help with that. But that's, you know, like we said, we'll agree to disagree on that one. That's the difference. You found one of the differences, Alex.
Yeah, we've taken a lot of people who had already tried your way.
I'm not saying no, but it's not about enemas and colonics by themselves. The question then is, what were they eating and how well did they transition? Yeah, there's a bunch of people that they try to skip over and shortcut around making the proper dietary changes by, like, well, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a bunch of enemas, or I'm gonna get a bunch of colonics and that kind of stuff, but they're still eating mucus. That don't count.
Listen, having been raw vegan 31 years, I used to speak at all the big events in North America 20 plus years ago. I'm well enough known in the community. We see a lot of people here. I mean, I've worked with thousands of people who already eat close to perfectly, many of whom have tried enemas as well. And we still see tons and tons. I mean, literally, on average, probably 20 pounds of old hard material leaving the average person's body. We don't weigh it. It's a guess. Maybe it's less, but it's a lot of material. So anyway, we can move on, Alex. I know that time is running out here.
Loren, you don't think, like Loren, you don't think that the enemas can help get rid of that stuff more quickly?
Well, no, I don't. I think there's some stuff that they're obviously flushing out, but I mean, enemas. So the majority of the material is not in the colon. The majority of the material is in the small intestine. Your colon, your colon's is roughly as long as your height, and so it's a fraction of the 32-foot long system. Not even 20%.
And it gets further and further up. The cleaner the cleaner it gets.
How does it get past the ileocecal valve?
I don't know, but it can, because and I don't recommend this, but when I do enema and invert the body, if I'm 60, 70, 80 days into a fast, or if we want to call it just a liquid period, you can have that water can go all the way through and come out of your mouth. And like I said, I don't promote that. I don't recommend that, but I've seen that. And it's not just because people think the water is just like in the colon. It's like, that's if you're still really constipated, and two, if you're doing, because when people do like one enema and they think they did something, you didn't do anything yet. It's like there's 32 feet of impacted intestines. That's like, pound, 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds of uneliminated fecal matter sitting in there. And so I mean, you could just eat the combination salads or that, and get the stuff out that way, but still it's not gonna, you ain't gonna really get that clean, and then get into the interstitial fluid in the walls of the colon, and that's where the lemon juice kind of helps to kind of extract some stuff out of there, but yeah.
Loren, just quickly,
yeah,
because what do you think of, like, if it goes up towards, like, beyond the colon?
I don't know how that's possible. There's a valve between the small and large intestine. There's a valve between the stomach and the small intestine. Your body is not letting anything up there that doesn't want to be there, that shouldn't be there. So my guess is what's coming up is something else. It's not the water you're sticking in the colon. I mean, all I can tell you is that, I've had many people here who've done dozens and dozens of enemas, and we still have them eliminating tons of old hard material. I'll offer a challenge. Anybody who's not clear about this, if you're willing to, come spend 4 weeks or more with us, or work with me remotely. No more enemas. No enemas during the process. I guarantee you, no matter how many you've done, I'll guarantee you, Spira, fast with me 21 days or longer, an actual water-only fast. You'll eliminate pounds and pounds of old hard stuff. It never fails to occur.
I mean, now I don't disagree with that. Like, to me, that's different thing. I don't disagree with, because I was the one that said, when you fast, whether you do enema or not, 60, 70 days in, having just like bowel movements or slime movements coming out,
no, but you're
whether you do an enema or not.
You're talking about drinking juices, and I'm talking about water-only fasting for just 21 days, not 60 or 70 days in, just 21 days.
Well,
actually,
so the longest I've done the dry fast is 14 days, but my friend, he either does nothing but drinking juice or dry fasting, and he had recently did a 40. He recently did a 40-day dry fast, no enemas, because he was like, I'm not, no enemas,
hard dry fast.
Dry, and there was still, still stuff coming out. just with the, so just getting that deep into the bodies, like still stuff coming out of there.
That's really shocking, because we fasted at least 100 people who had a dry fasting practice. Every one of them was the most dehydrated people we've ever seen here. We measure people's hydration level. They're the most dehydrated people. We had a guy here recently who was 34, 35. He was as dehydrated as the average 75-year-old. And usually the older people are, the more dehydrated they are, because most people are getting more dehydrated every day by making conventional choices. So he was more than, way more dehydrated than most people anywhere close to his age. And that's always true. It's been true for every single dry faster we've ever seen. They're super dehydrated people. And it can take many, many weeks, much longer than most people, to rehydrate the old waste as a result of the fast. But they wind up eliminating tons of stuff, and it's usually super painful and difficult, because dry fasting has made whatever is stuck in their systems really, really hard and dry.
This is a different situation. This is somebody that he did the dry fast after having practiced a strict mucusless diet healing system for 40 years. And so he'd been through all the different, over the years. And that's what we talk about, the transition where 40-day, couple years into practicing the mucusless diet, a 40-day fast is out of the, a 40-day dry fast is out of the question. But when you deal with the transition, and your goal is not just to be raw, but to be 100% fruit or 100%, mucus-free fruit or whatever the goal is, now dry fasting for like that it's normal. It's not, you don't even have to use the word fast, because now he just go 10 days, I didn't eat or drink anything. He doesn't look all, sunken in or, crazy. It's like no one even knows he's fasting on the street, if he's going and playing concerts and that kind of stuff. So,
and are you sure this person's human? Because most people, there's something that happens to people and they go 40 days without any food or water. They die. Most people, they'd be dead. Very, very few people.
Those are the kind of stories that come from our camp, where that. But
it doesn't take someone 40 years to get their body clean and healthy. We can do it in 4 weeks. I'd take this guy. I guarantee him in writing, if he spends 4 weeks with us, he'd get his body cleaner than it is now. Because you can't eat cooked food for 40 years and get healthier.
He hasn't eaten cooked food for. That's what I'm saying. The transition doesn't mean that it means there's a whole, it's an art form. You're not eating the same thing year in after year. You can literally see a change. What you ate in year 1 is going to be totally different from how and what you eat in year 20 is going to be way different from year 40. And in his case, he's getting to the point where, but then because another difference we have is the definition of healthy, like what is health? What is a good diet? Like that, because like I said, I'm looking at the cleaner you get, the less you'll have to eat. So he's not sitting there being dry, like, man, I really want food. It's like, because he gradually worked up to it and got his body cleaner than anybody else's body that I know of. Right. He's in a situation where that's easy to do. That it goes back to, for anybody that believes the concept of vitality equals power minus obstruction that air puts in, so then that gets back to this concept of living on air, the breathing, which is a cleansing process, the real nutrition process, which is still a cleansing of the blood with every breath that we take. The one thing we can't do, we can go without food for days. We can't go 5-10 minutes without air. And so it's not because we're cleansed. It's not because we can't go 5 minutes without cleansing. It's because without air, we die, because our bodies need oxygen. I mean, let's it needs oxygen to do what? Cleansing. It's helping. It's cleaning the blood. We're bringing in oxygen. We're breathing out carbon dioxide, the waste product. And there's a cleansing process that is taking place. That's the
we're not breathing
process.
to cleanse. We're breathing because the body needs to take in oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. It's not.
Isn't that an elimination of things that are no longer needed in the body, of waste matter,
because we're breathing. Yeah.
Because our body is an air gas engine, as Ehret said. So that's one the principle the principle of life. The more obstruction that the body has in it, inside and out,
we're not breathing to eliminate obstruction. We're breathing because we need oxygen. It's not about eliminating obstruction.
We're breathing because we need oxygen to eliminate unnecessary waste from the bloodstream in the body. And the longer you go not eating food, the body starts to eliminate stuff that you never ever would have eliminated if you didn't do that.
Well, you don't have to tell me about that. It's what we've been doing for 27
we agree,
years.
Yeah, we agree on that.
But I mean, we're definitely not going to agree that dry fasting is a good idea.
No, and I want to say that I don't promote long-term fasting. I don't promote, and another thing we'll agree on. I mean, I've told people, I'm like, if you want to do long-term water fasting, please go to a facility, go to a place like your place or wherever. Do not do that thing by yourself.
Exactly.
I've told a number of people that because you have
to really understand what you're doing.
Yeah. That's if that's the path you want to take. So, but yeah, no, it's just I do not. So I don't promote dry fasting. I don't condone that. I'm saying things that people have done that are pretty interesting in our community as folks that are like trying to walk in the shoes of Ehret, where he was experimenting on himself first before he worked with thousands of people at his sanitariums. He was doing different kinds of fasting. Of course, his long monitored fast was a water fast. Which were in very unideal circumstances. You'd never want to.
Yeah, and my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding was he didn't actually guide that many people through fast. He didn't spend most of his time doing that. I mean, he was what, 52 when he died?
He was 56. He had started working with people in his early 30s, and so he'd seen thousands of people at an assortment of different sanitariums. First, there was one in Switzerland. I think one in Germany, and then one in Oregon, where he had once he came over here in 1915. And but no, he cites that in case, unless you don't believe, if somebody could read it and like, I don't believe him, but he worked with thousands of people, and he was an underground kind of sensation because people would go to all these different doctors and they'd be say, oh, we can't help you, you're incurable, and they'd go work with Ehret. And he would fast them. And and the famous one that he did was where he fasted his Fred Hirsch, they said he had a bone infection and he was going to die in like a couple weeks. Ehret monitored him, put him on the fast, and healed him. And
we literally see what most people would call miracles here every session. I mean, it's multiple times per year now for more than 25 years. So yeah, I'm aware. I mean, obviously, if everyone was going to conventional doctors and then went to Ehret and Ehret said, water fast, of course they're going to see much different results, much better. They're going to have much better results because fasting simply allows our amazing self-healing bodies the chance to cleanse and heal. But again, I don't know what to say about this guy that you're saying has done 40 days on no food and no water. That's more than a little hard to believe. And if it's true, and I'm not sure I believe that, but if it's true, I'll bet most people try that would die, would wind up dead. I know half a dozen people dead from dry fasting, not a single fast, but because some of them died while doing it, some of them destroyed their kidneys as a result of dry fasting, because that's what happens when you're dehydrated. You scar your kidneys and then they wind up failing at some point. I know several people who've done that. I can't comment on this guy. I don't know what to say. I mean, I wonder if he's actually human. I don't think that's going to be a very good idea for most people. But
so going back to the thread, actually, so that's perfect because we've gone into the fasting topic. Also know you don't have much time left, Loren. So to go on that fasting topic, I think we both like the water fasting. For dry fasting, Loren, you wouldn't recommend it even like a full day, right? Like,
well, there's no reason to do that. There's okay. Look, I mean, I've read the translation of what's his name, the Russian doctor who promotes dry fasting. I've read the translation of his book in English. There's not a shred of science to support.
Let's move also, because I know we wanted to talk a little bit about other kinds of fasting. So
sure.
We've talked a lot about dry already. Water, I think that's a beautiful one. Then there's one thing about juice fasting. So juice fasting, there is the part where it can be easier to digest and a fast in that way. Another thing we've talked about, Loren, I know, is in a way juice is unnatural because you don't find a pile of orange juice, you deprive the fiber. So there's a way to think that it's not super healthy in a way to drink too much juice. So there's the juice, and then there's and there's this, and then I know also here some people do coconut water, which is different because it has calories, it has sugar, but it's a natural way also. So maybe Loren, you can start on it, and then
sure, absolutely.
Spira can share also.
Right. Coconut water. I mean, coconuts exist in nature. We don't have to do anything to them. They're not easy to get into, but it is possible to get into them without having tools, with rocks and so forth. I've done it and seen it done many times. It's a lot easier with metal tools, but, not necessary. And so one could drink coconut water and probably live on it for a long time. It contains calories and nutrients and sugar and all the other things that the body does need. I personally don't think those are theories. I think that's pretty clear what the body needs. That's different because of that. Now, is it ideal? I mean, it's interesting. We have people sometimes we have amazing coconuts here in Costa Rica, better than the ones I've had anywhere else in the world so far. And except that they're very sweet. And so we'll have people sometimes when they're breaking their fast, some people, if they have any sugar issues, sometimes I'll tell them they want to be very cautious about using coconut water. It has the highest glycemic load of anything we offer people breaking fasts here. It's one of the three options that we give them the first day. And for most people, it works really well. But for some people, they're going to feel all that sugar. So it's probably not an ideal thing to be doing too much of because of that. But in many ways, it is natural. It's perfectly fine. And you can do it as much as you choose to. Juices, unfortunately, are quite different and not something. I mean, I started out years ago on a juice fasting or juice feasting path before I discovered rational fasting and tried water fasting. My last juice fast was 120 days. It was 4 months on just juices. I could have lived on it forever. I had plenty of energy because I was taking in plenty of sugar. You're getting your nutrients needs met, but the body has to work hard to outprocess the concentrated amounts of stuff that's coming in. And we're meant to be eating whole foods. So there's a story I've told over and over again, and I'll share it again here, just reaching for a prop. I had just completed a lecture somewhere outside of Washington, D.C. some years ago. And a woman raised her hand and asked me some questions. And I answered her questions. And then I said to her, "You drink a lot of carrot juice, don't you?" And she said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I said, "Well, you're orange." Okay, her skin was bright orange. And she said, "Oh, that's because I'm detoxifying." And I responded by saying, I run the world's largest dedicated water-only fasting center. No one's ever turned orange detoxing. It's not a symptom of detoxification. It's a symptom that she was taking in more carotenes than her liver could handle. That's not a good idea, right? And if it's carrot juice or beet juice or fruit juices, high glycemic load, more than 3 for the fruits, more than 3 times the glycemic load, roughly 3 times of the fruit itself, of the whole fruit, which means your body has to work much harder to eliminate the excess sugar from the bloodstream. Carrots and beets, my guess is probably much more than 3 times the glycemic load. And with green juices, you're looking at excessive amounts of protein, and excess protein acts as a stimulant like sugar does. So people feel good because they feel stimulated, but excess protein makes us age and die faster. Juices contain.
So to keep it short, that's mainly why you don't really recommend juice fasting.
Well, there's actually several things. I'll give you a very quick rundown. Okay, very quick. So 1, overly concentrated. 2, largely oxidized. Much of those nutrients oxidized. There's one study that demonstrates this in 4 minutes. 60%, I think, of the vitamin C is lost, just oxidation. It's fragmented. You don't have the fiber. You're losing nutrients in the fiber. It's imbalanced. Things oxidize at different rates. So instead of the perfect proportions of things that you find in the whole foods, you wind up with something that's no longer ideal. And there's deuterium found, heavy water, in everything, but it's concentrated in the juice. It's harmful to us. There's tiny amounts of it in most things, but if we're drinking juices, it becomes concentrated. And so, I think juices are definitely far from optimal. And while I started on them, I did a week. After 120 days on juice, I did a week on water and went, oh, wow, okay, this is a whole different thing. And so no more juice for me. Every once in a while, I'll have some, but not very often, a few times a year.
Spira, you've had good experiences with juice fasting, right?
Yeah, I've had good experiences with it. I've never had any issues from the sugar or anything like that, as far as that would cause anything noticeable. Maybe next year I'll fall over dead or something, but I haven't had any issues as of yet. And it's one of those things where there's been times where I'd go, I wouldn't have any juice and just eat the juicy fruit. But if I get a bunch of good oranges or something's in season that's really good, that's it. I can roll with that, or don't let me get some good mangoes. I can really, I can go a long time with that. But I find that the juice periods, they enhance my elimination, and they help to neutralize some of if there's any poisons or any kind of stuff that's left in the system, or anything that's in there. Maybe I breathed something in and got in there, but whatever's in there, it's just a thorough can lead the body into a thorough cleansing. Is it the best thing? Not saying that. Is it a tool, like enema is a tool, or herbology is a tool, or any of those things that you can pick and choose from? He's like, I don't want to do that. They're like, let me try that. Let me see if that works for me. So that's how I look at it. And Ehret, I'll read. So in both rational fasting and in Mucusless diet, he has a section called fasting drinks. And he says the fanatic fasting enthusiast drinks only water. They think it best to avoid any trace of food whatsoever. I consider light lemonade with a little honey or brown sugar or a little fruit juice the best. Drink as often as you care to during the day, but in general, not more than 2 or 3 quarts a day. The less you drink, the more aggressive the fast works. As a change, vegetable juices made from cooked starchless vegetables are very good during a longer fast. Raw tomato juice, etc., is also good. But if fruit juice, for example, orange juice, is used during a longer fast, be extremely careful, because the fruit juices may cause the poisons to become loosened too rapidly without causing a bowel movement. I know of a number of fruit or fruit juice fasts which failed completely because all mucus and poisons, if loosened too fast and too much at one time, disturbs all organs too greatly when in the circulation. this waste can only be eliminated through the circulation and without the aid of bowel movements. So that's kind of where I came from, and had been experimenting with that for a number of years, and find that that particular tool has been helpful for me. And a lot of
I'm going to have to run. If I can just comment one thing. I mean, again, we agree on much more than we disagree on, I think, Spira. And I mean, yes, it's a tool. And by the way, I also got benefit from doing it. But here's the thing. I mean, first of all, most people aren't going to notice that their body is working harder to outprocess the extra sugar. Most people aren't going to notice that the body's having to work harder to outprocess all those excess nutrients. But we're meant to eat the quantities of calories and nutrients that we would find in whole foods. And so, I think it's important to remember that everything is relative. If you're living on garbage, drinking juices is a lot healthier than that. And so you're definitely going to cleanse and heal, maybe significantly. I think Ehret completely had it wrong. I mean, the simple fact is that when we're doing a water only fast, what I would call, real fasting, there's a whole cascade of beneficial physiological changes, but they don't occur in the presence of any calories or nutrients. And so, hardcore fasting fanatic, nothing, no salt, nothing. You can't add anything to the water and get the same benefits. We have people sometimes who, for whatever reason, wind up with an electrolyte imbalance. We check before they start to make sure that they're starting in a safe place. But if sometimes it happens, sometimes I have someone here now who needed to take some electrolytes. She kept going, but she wasn't technically fasting anymore. And what happens is very different. We can see that. It's completely different. So, I think we have to keep in mind, it really is different if you're consuming anything else. Guys, I've got to run. So
yeah. Would you have 2 or 3 minutes, or need to run now?
I can take 2 minutes. I can take
okay,
that.
so let's finish with a minute each, and I'll time it as a little conclusion. Do you want to start, Spira, with a minute to share and wrap up?
I want to thank you. I want to thank Loren for coming and having the civil discussion that doesn't always take place sometimes in the raw food and the mucus-free worlds, where people, just gets crazy sometimes. So, I appreciate the discussion, and definitely, I enjoyed the discussion. And like you said, I think there's a whole lot we agree on, and the things that we don't, not a big deal to me. It's just like, all right, people got to hear the different sides, and then folks do whatever is going to help them the most. And, and just live life and enjoy.
Thank you, Spira. And Loren?
Yeah, well said, Spira. I too, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. I like having these kinds of discussions. It's great to be able to get information out to people, and this is a great format to do it in. It's a pleasure to be with you again, Alex. It's a pleasure to meet you, Spira. I very much I respect you, and I appreciate what you're doing. I understand that your goal is to help as many people as possible, as mine is. Having started with Ehret's work 35 years ago, what I found was when I made the changes I made, I got much more benefit. And so, we can agree to disagree on things, and that's okay. And obviously, anyone listening, each person needs to come to their own conclusions. I wouldn't, as I said earlier, I'd encourage anyone, if they're really committed to their own health and vitality and more to maximizing their potential, spend a month with me, 4 weeks, whether it's here or it's remotely. I guarantee you're going to be blown away by what happens. And that's going to be true no matter what else you've done. If you've done dry fasting, or if you've done juice feasting, or if you've been eating a mucusless diet, if you do only water and then go to an all raw diet, I think you're going to see the highest level of health and vitality possible. That's actually what I guarantee people in writing. So again, it's been a pleasure being here with you. I hope we'll have another chance at some point to talk, maybe to meet in person. Spira, I'll see you, Alex, very soon, less than 2 weeks. I wish everyone well.
Thank you, guys, and thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, both of you. I think it was amazing. Thank you to the listener. Please like, share, subscribe if you think this was valuable, and I'll put the links, of course, to the resources of Professor Spira and Loren Lockman. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Beautiful. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.